Good afternoon, and welcome to the inaugural CEO panel presented by the Brad D. Smith Schools of Business and its Dean's Distinguished Speaker Series at Marshall University and sponsored by the Mountain Health Network. I am Avi Mukherjee, Dean of the Lewis College of Business. Thank you, speakers and panel members, students, alumni, faculty, staff, community members, business leaders, government officials, university administrators, and board members for joining us at this historic and majestic Keith Albee Performing Arts Theater. The Lewis College of Business, celebrating its 50th anniversary, offers contemporary, cutting-edge, applied business education and research while being rooted in the region's economic and business development. Reimagined by a transformational gift by Brad and Elise Smith in 2018, the Brad D. Smith Schools of Business have identified experiential learning as the DNA of our academic programs in business. The Dean's Distinguished Speaker Series was started recently as the highest profile speaker series of the Brad D. Smith Schools of Business, offering a rich and vibrant experience to our students and various other stakeholders as they learn from renowned C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, and business leaders about business successes, effective leadership, and the future of work. As a part of this series, the inaugural CEO panel brings 3 top-tier business leaders to Huntington to provide insightful perspectives through dynamic discussions covering a broad range of topics that influence the world of business and bring powerful lessons from the boardroom to the community. We have with us today Brad D. Smith, proud son of Marshall and the executive board chairman and former CEO and president of Intuit, who put together this panel and will serve as the moderator in this panel discussion. He is joined by 2 top-tier CEOs from Silicon Valley who will be introduced later in the program. These CEOs are internationally respected business leaders who have an excellent reputation and a powerful story to tell. The theme of the panel discussion is powering possibilities. Talent is dispersed equally, but opportunity is less so. Rapid technological, environmental, and social shifts are changing the rules of how emerging talent can seize economic opportunities in communities across the globe. In this panel discussion, our stakeholders will hear from these business leaders as they discuss the skills and mindsets needed to succeed in today's economic landscape. Together, communities, corporations, and academia can shape the world for future generations to thrive. Thank you for supporting the Distinguished Speaker Series at Marshall University as we strive to create impact, innovation, and engagement for business and business education in our mountain state. It is now my honor to introduce the president of Marshall University, Dr. Jerome Gilbert.
Good afternoon. I can tell you I am delighted to be here today in what is going to be a historic event for Marshall University and the community here in Huntington. To have such well-known leaders of industry, including Intuit, PayPal, and Adobe Systems, is a treat and an honor for our university and our community. I want to begin by thanking our chief sponsor, the Mountain Health Network. Their support is so appreciated in helping us bring this event to the Keith Albee. And if you've never been in the Keith Albee Theater, we are in a true treasure for the state of West Virginia and also the city of Huntington. Believe it or not, this grand old lady is 92 years old and is just as beautiful today as when she was constructed in 1928. She was built in the Spanish Baroque style under the guidance of architect Thomas Lamb. We are proud that the Keith Albee has been the home to our own Marshall Artist Series since 1936, making our Artist Series the second oldest university-sponsored artist series in the nation. We're very proud of that. Let's have a hand for the Keith Albee. Penny Watkins does a great job with our artist series. I should also mention that tomorrow night we actually have an artist series production here, Finding Netherland. I thank the Marshall Artist Series for allowing us to utilize the setup here in the theater as they prepare for this production. We're also very pleased that Joe Edens and the MPE Entertainment assisted us in creating this set for the panel tonight. We have a number of national, state, and local dignitaries and supporters and alumni of Marshall University with us. We're delighted to have Senator Shelley Moore Capito, Senator Joe Manchin, and Representative Carol Miller with us. Thank you. I'm particularly proud that Representative Miller is from our very own 3rd District here and is right here from Huntington. As a matter of fact, she's my neighbor, so I'm very proud of that. From the state of West Virginia, I think we have the Chief of the Governor's Staff, Mike Hall, with us. Also, we have Secretary of State Mac Warner, and perhaps some other members of the executive branch as well. From our legislative branch, I would like to acknowledge the Speaker of the House, Roger Hanshaw, and the Senate President, Mitch Carmichael. We also have numerous senators and members of the House of Delegates with us from the West Virginia legislature. And would you all give all of our delegates and senators a hand at this time? Locally, we are proud to have Mayor Steve Williams with us. We also have people from the County of Cabell, the County of Wayne. We also have local officials in attendance. We also have other counties represented here, Putnam, Kanawha, Mason, Lincoln, and more. Would you recognize all of our city and county officials that are with us today? I have a very special recognition that I want to make. Higher education is represented here today by a number of university and college presidents. In particular, I want to recognize my very good friend Gordon Gee of West Virginia University. Marshall is proud to stand as a Research 2 university with our sister institution, WVU, which is a Research 1 university. That deserves an applause. Thank you. We are creating knowledge, solving complex problems, and advancing the state with job creation and partnerships to promote entrepreneurship. Would you give Gordon Gee a hand at this point and all the other presidents that are here with us? It's always a good idea to recognize your boss, and I have my bosses here with me, the Board of Governors of Marshall University, if they would stand and we could recognize them. Thank you. And I will say that I'm pleased that everyone is here. This is a sellout crowd, as it were, and we're delighted to have everyone here. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce one of our most famous alumnus and sons of Marshall, Brad D. Smith. Brad and his wife, Elise, who you heard earlier, have been very generous to Marshall University in making a gift of $25 million to Marshall in 2018. We have recently established the Brad D. Smith Schools of Business and our Lewis College of Business, and we have opened the Brad D. Smith Incubator on 3rd Avenue in Huntington. In addition, we have plans to build the Brad D. Smith Center for Business and Innovation, which will be the new building to house our College of Business on 4th Avenue. It will be a beautiful state-of-the-art facility and one of which we are going to be very, very proud. So now let me tell you a little bit about Brad. He is a West Virginia guy. He was born right here in Huntington and raised in Canova, which is about 8 miles west of us. Growing up in Canova, he was given a foundation of traditional West Virginia values which have stayed with Brad to the current day. In fact, on numerous occasions, he has attributed his rather humble beginnings as key to his success. He learned the value of hard work, integrity, humility, and teamwork right here in our community. Brad Smith graduated from Marshall University in 1986 with a Bachelor of Business Administration degree with a minor in marketing. He subsequently earned a master's in management from Aquinas College. He had a number of executive positions, including at ADP and Pepsi, before arriving at Intuit in 2003. At Intuit, he held the positions of vice president, senior vice president, and general manager of 2 different groups. And then he became president and CEO of the company in 2008. In early 2019, Brad stepped down as president and CEO and transitioned to the position of executive board chairman of Intuit. Since November of 2018, Brad has also served as the chair of the board of Nordstrom. There are a number of different things that have shaped Brad's amazing life and business career. Growing up in Canova, his parents, and Marshall University. But perhaps the most important influences are his wife, Elise, and his 2 daughters, Peyton and Devin. By his own admission, living with these 3 women have given him a perspective and made him a more sensitive person. And I'm convinced that the sensitive nature of this great business executive has given him an edge in motivating his employees and understanding people, which are both critical for success in business. The Brad Smith story is a story of hard work, it's a story of West Virginia values, and it's a story of family. It's also a story of accomplishing amazing things like this event today. We are very grateful for Brad and all that he does. I now give you my friend, son of Marshall, and titan of the business world, Brad Smith.
Am I on? There we go. First of all, thank you for that kind introduction, but I think Brad from Canova would have sufficed. That's my favorite introduction, Brad from Canova. Hello, Huntington. Hello, Herd Nation. Hello, Mountaineer Nation, Gordon Gee and the team here. And to all of you who are dialing in from around the region through our live streaming, hello to you as well. It's good to be home. And especially good to be at this event this afternoon at this moment in time. Because I believe this moment in time represents a crossroads. It's an intersection between our historical accomplishments and our future possibilities. Possibilities for each and every one of us as individuals. Possibilities for Marshall, WVU, the other state universities and colleges, and the students that they teach. And possibilities for this great state of West Virginia. Now, as President Gilbert shared, I had the privilege of growing up in the town of Canova, a short drive from here. I had an amazing childhood. Great parents, wonderful brothers, extended family and friends that have stood by me throughout a lifetime. And it's because of you and those of you who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself and invested in me that I've been able to be blessed with the things I've been able to see in my life and be a part of in my life. Simply said, I am, because we are. Thank you for that. As proud as I am of this state, as proud as I am of our past accomplishments, and as proud as I am of everything that we've invested in each other, I believe the time has come for change. The time for us to reimagine and transform ourselves, and in doing so, to prepare the next generation for the world that they are about to inherit. Because the world we live in now is rapidly evolving. It is a global economy connected by the cloud, with devices in the palm of our hand, on our wrists, at the command of our voice with Alexa, Siri, and Cortana, all powered by this thing called big data, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. And even though those new technologies bring magic to our lives in ways we would not have imagined just 10 years ago, they also bring change and disruption of jobs and of industries. They also accelerate the pace of change 10 times faster than we were experiencing just a decade ago. That is an amazing and yet somewhat concerning future. We're also facing something called the 75% reality. The 75% reality is the digital generation right now. 75% of them actually want to own their own business. They want to start their own company. They don't want to go to work for another company. The second 75% reality is 75% of all new jobs around the world are created by small businesses and startups. The third 75% reality is 75% of venture capital money last year went to 3 places: California, New York, and Massachusetts. God was egalitarian when he handed out talent. Unfortunately, economies are not. But we're here to change that in West Virginia. Now, I'm excited. I am excited because I see things already happening. Yes, there are national polls where we rank 48th, 49th, and 50th. And when we don't rank 48th, 49th, and 50th, we rank on the upper end of things we may not want to be near the top end of, fighting addictions and other things. But there are bright spots all around us. Our policymakers at a federal and state level are shaping policy to even the playing field so we can participate. We have our universities working in a collaborative fashion, both pushing forward with entrepreneurial skills and embracing the community colleges and the state colleges and universities around the state as a collective we. And we also have exciting new things happening with companies. You have companies like M4 coming into Charleston. You have Core 10 teaching coding skills. You have my own company, Intuit, opening up a prosperity hub in Bluefield and creating hundreds of jobs. And while those are all exciting, we know we have our work cut out for us. But I stand before you today an optimist. I don't see a glass half empty, I see a glass half full. And the reason why is because of our past. If you go back to our earliest days, these mountains of West Virginia broke the spirit of common men and women. Only the hardiest of the hardy survived. I believe God created a special individual when he created West Virginians. He created men and women who chose to blaze a trail instead of follow a path. And as I look out over the horizon, I see 2 trails that light the way to our future: education and entrepreneurship. They are the great equalizers that level the playing field and transform tough realities into amazing possibilities. And this is an example today of what Marshall, WVU, and other schools are doing, where they're bringing world-class leaders into our state, learning from their insights and experiences, and helping us figure out how we can expose our talent to them so they know where the great talent resides in the United States, right here in West Virginia. Now, I'm going to wrap up by simply giving you an overview of 2 of the panelists that are joining me today. They begged me backstage to simply introduce them by their name. But these individuals are universally regarded as world-class CEOs and incredibly good human beings. And I think that would be a disservice. So I'm going to briefly give you a bio on both of them, and then I'll introduce them on stage. The first is Dan Schulman. He serves as the president and CEO of PayPal. Just a show of hands, how many use PayPal? Oh yes, ubiquitous. In addition to making your lives better every day, $10 billion of charitable giving and philanthropy were made on the PayPal platform last year. $10 billion. It is a mission-driven company, and it comes from the heart of Dan Schulman. He and his company are focused on transforming financial services to make life easier for billions of people around the world. Before he took the helm of PayPal, he was the group president at American Express. He was president of the prepaid products group at Sprint Nextel. He served as the CEO of Virgin Mobile USA. He served as the CEO of the Priceline Group. He started at AT&T. He serves on the board of Verizon. He serves on the board of Autism Speaks, which speaks to his heart. He serves on the board of the Economic Club of New York and was the chairman of the board of Symantec, which is now known as Norton LifeLock. He's accomplished so much. He's received a lot of individual awards, but one that may catch your attention. He's ranked one of the top 10 CEOs in the world by Fortune magazine. Now, joining him on stage is Shantanu Narayan. He is the chairman and CEO of Adobe, one of the largest and most diversified software companies in the world. Shantanu and Adobe are focused on changing the world through digital experiences by unleashing the creativity in all of us, accelerating document productivity, and powering digital business. He joined that company in 1998. He became the CEO in 2007 and the chairman of the board in 2017. Prior to Adobe, he worked at Apple, he worked at Silicon Graphics, and he started his own business, a photo sharing site known as Pictra. He also serves on a board. He serves on Pfizer's board, and he serves as the vice chairman of the United States of America and India's Strategic Partnership Forum. He's also won many awards, being ranked a top CEO by Fortune, by Barron's, and by Glassdoor, and he holds 5 patents. 5 patents that he has created and brought to this world. So without further ado, it is a privilege to introduce my 2 friends to the stage, Dan Schulman and Shantanu Narayan. Guys, first of all, thank you. Welcome to the historic Keith Albee Theater, built in 1928, as President Gilbert described. I stood in line for hours to watch the opening of Jaws here, Star Wars here. I had many first dates here, but not many second dates. I can't blame the theater for that one. You have packed the house. We have over 1,800 people in attendance and hundreds actually coming in through live stream, so clearly people are excited to have you here. And I am as well. But I suspect there may be a few people in the audience are saying, wait a minute, I got a flyer. I thought there were going to be 3 CEOs and Brad. And so I would like to play a quick video from our friend, John Donahoe, the CEO of Nike, who really wishes he could be here today, but he has a message for you. So can we roll the video, please?
Hello, Herd Nation. This is John Donahoe. I was hoping to be there with you in person today, but I've had to stay back at Nike's headquarters here in Portland, so can't be with you today. But you're in good hands with Brad, Shantanu, and Dan, who are not only 3 outstanding leaders, but 3 people I'm proud to say are my close friends. And we all share a passion around what you're going to talk about today, which is the topic of leadership. And we all deeply admire current and future leaders like yourself that exhibit the grit, perseverance, and determination that it takes to lead. So I hope you enjoy today's fireside, and I look forward to a point in the future when I come see firsthand the remarkable work you're doing. In the meantime, as we say at Nike, just do it.
So a little bit of context, you may have seen an org announcement. Nike just did some pretty significant restructuring of the senior management team, and John needed to stay behind to deliver that message to the team. He truly was committed to coming, and you got him on video. He will come. So we will get him here, and he's going to be at a future event. But in the meantime, he teased us and said, I'm going to finish up with just do it, because that's what you all have to do. Just do it. So you're 1 person down, but you're going to make it happen. And believe me, we got superstars here. So gentlemen, I know I embarrassed you as you were standing backstage. You asked me not to go through your bios, and as much as I admire, and quite frankly, I have learned from your professional successes, it's who you are as individuals that have created our bond of friendship over the years. I would love for the audience to get to know that side of you. So if I asked you the question, if you think about your life and those transformative moments that kind of shaped who you are as a person, and as a result, how you show up as a leader, Could you share some of those with us?
Well, first, it really is such a pleasure and privilege to be here, Brad. So thank you so much. I know Dan and I were talking at backstage, and just seeing what a true rock star you are. We're proud to be your friend. A quick story on Brad. He and I actually took over as CEOs within a quarter of each other, and we were both deer in the headlight in terms of taking over as CEOs. And so one thing that we really looked forward to was the quarterly meeting where either we celebrated or we commiserated. Because
we celebrated you and commiserated me.
I think having a self-help group in terms of the roles that we play, Dan, is always really welcome. But I've to answer your question, I've just been so privileged to have so many great occasions. But since the theme is entrepreneurship, I think one of the things that probably has shaped me the most, and you alluded to it, Brad, was when I started my own company called Pictra. And this was in the early 90s. I was at Silicon Graphics. I had a great job. I had just come from Apple. But this bug of trying to create a company because we thought that image sharing on the web would be important was something that really struck me as important. And I think the beautiful thing about Silicon Valley when you create a company is it actually doesn't matter whether you're successful or not. It's the journey and what you learn in the journey that I think has shaped me incredibly well. And so whether it was raising money, whether it's hiring people, whether it's trying to sell the product, I think every aspect of growing a business and having something that you call your own, I think I've tried to translate that experience over the last 20 years into what we've done at Adobe, and being unreasonable.
Yes, I love that. And I will just punctuate one point. One of the most popular books in the Silicon Valley is Getting to Plan B, written by Randy Komisar, because it basically debunks the myth of this Silicon Valley success. 90% of all the companies that have succeeded in the Silicon Valley succeeded on their second idea. They failed the first time around. And that's the culture you've created at Adobe, is embracing success and failure as a chance to learn, which is amazing. Dan, how about you?
Well, first of all, I'll say the same thing, Brad. Thank you for having both of us. You are such a good friend to not just Shantanu and myself, but to so many, to John, to all of us. And it's our pleasure to be here. And thank you, West Virginia, for hosting us. We greatly appreciate it. I think I was shaped predominantly by my parents more than anything else, both my mom and my dad. They played sort of counterbalancing roles. My mom punished me all the time. My dad said it's going to be okay. But my dad said something to me that I remember to this day. He said, "Look, son, you're born with 2 ears and 1 mouth, and you should use them proportionately." That's always been a saying that I pay a lot of attention to, because I think the world that we live in now is changing faster than we can imagine. I mean, we're all part of the technology scene. We see this, but I think the nature of change itself is changing. I mean, it is accelerating at a pace we've never seen before. I mean, the example I give to PayPal employees when I'm speaking in front of them is, if you think about quantum computing and what that's doing in AI right now, Google just came out with an equation that they ran through their quantum computer that they did a simulation in terms of what the world's fastest supercomputer could do. So the world's fastest supercomputer, the United States has it, it's called Summit, and it would have taken Summit 10,000 years to solve this equation, and it took the quantum computer 200 seconds. And to me, that is the world that we're moving into, a world of quantum computing, a world of artificial intelligence, a world where communications is going to be instantaneous with no latency whatsoever, computing moving out into the edge, everything driven by voice commands. And we can't imagine how fast things are changing. The average lifespan of a Fortune 500 company today, Fortune 500 company, If you went back 75 years ago, it was 56 years. Today, the average lifespan of a Fortune 500 company is about 8 years.
Yes. Yep.
So think about just how quickly, if you think about, well, I'm just going to do what I used to do and do it better going forward. Like actually your biggest impediment to future success is your past success. Yeah. You tend to want to repeat it, and in a world that's discontinuous, you can't do that. And I think, to me, learning, being very humble about it, not, as another good friend of ours says, the CEO of Microsoft, Satya, always says, don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all. And I think that is absolutely the key to being successful. Listen, learn, adapt. Don't be afraid to challenge yourself. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and push forward.
I love it. Common theme both of you shared. Dan, I'm going to ask you to click down on one thing. We talk about in the Valley, change is inevitable. It can happen to you, or it can happen through you. It's your choice. But we also believe that with change comes empathy, humanity, compassion, the importance of showing how we coexist with these technologies as opposed to get replaced or displaced by these technologies. You went on an experience to try to better understand how some people live in a very difficult situation, homelessness. Mm-hmm. Do you mind just sharing that experience, what you did and why you did it, what you learned?
Yeah. So I think if you really want to have empathy, you can't just intellectually understand something. I mean, it's very easy to understand the issue of homelessness by numbers and the impact that it has on people. But if you haven't spent a day in somebody's shoes, you actually don't really understand what they go through. And I was, at the time, I was the CEO of Virgin Mobile, and we decided that we were going to take 2% of our profits at the time and invest it in some kind of cause. And we decided, because we were a mobile phone company focused on the youth market, that not many people were focused on homeless youth. And so we decided to try and make a difference in that specific space. And I was up in front of all of our employees with the executive director of this organization we were working with, who really focused on homeless youth, and was talking about this. And then he came up, and we had tears in everyone's eyes. He was talking about what was going on. And he said, and Dan and I are going to spend 24 hours out on the street being homeless together. And I was like, and all the employees were like, yes. And I was like, okay, I guess I better do this, because I can't really say no at the time. And I'll tell you, it was only 24 hours, so I don't want to make such a big deal out of it at all. But it was 24 hours where, well, I kind of dressed like Occupy Wall Street all the time, so really wasn't much difference in my dress code. But I wore jeans, I wore a t-shirt. We had no money, no mobile phones, nothing. And we went off to just live on the streets of New York for 24 hours, begging for money, which is a humiliating process to go and do that. I thought I'd be great at it because, our whole lives are being salespeople, like selling ideas. And, in that 24 hours, maybe I raised like 79 cents. Almost everybody treats you as if you're perfectly invisible. Perfectly invisible. It was actually a huge boost if somebody would even go, no, man, I can't do it. And so I have carried that philosophy into all the companies that I run. At PayPal, we try to basically provide services to populations who are underserved by traditional financial institutions. Who have a very hard time managing and moving their money because, unfortunately, in the financial services industry, the saying it's expensive to be poor is very true. You spend a ton of money just like cashing a check, standing in line to pay a bill, money orders, remittances that cost maybe 5 to 15% of what you're trying to send to somebody that you love. And what we do at PayPal is for everybody who comes into PayPal, They need to basically live a day without credit card, bank accounts, pay bills, do everything, to understand what it means to stand in a line to cash a check, to not have the right identification, to stand in line to pay a bill, to understand what that feels like. Because if you don't experience it physically in your heart, then you can never fully embrace it intellectually. And it gives you a sense of mission, a sense of purpose, and that's, in my estimation, that's what employees want the most. They want a sense of purpose.
Yes. It's well said. It's interesting. We attend a business council. We're flying up to DC later this evening for the next 2 days. But if you go back a period of time, we had a conversation around programs that are happening around this country where we're trying to help people who were recently incarcerated or struggling to get back on their feet. And there was a story of an individual who had come back and had gotten a job in one of these transition roles and had proudly shared that last night at 2:00 a.m. had gotten a text that they needed him badly because there had been a water main break in a home, and they needed the plumber to come immediately. And the moderator, not knowing, said, "Oh, that had to be a bummer," 2 in the morning, and pulled the phone out and handed it to the moderator and said, "Read it." And he said, "Joe, the water main broke, I need you." And he said, "That's the first time anyone in my life ever needed me." And what it makes you realize is jobs are dignity. They're more than just paychecks. And understanding that these are human beings trying to do the things you're talking about, that's Silicon Valley, and that's what we're all trying to do, is figure out how we can all be a part of this next chapter together. Shantanu, I want to talk a little bit about the future. Dan did a wonderful job describing how quickly everything's changing and the quantum processing capabilities and all the things that are going to be happening. We have about 2/3 of the audience are students today. I realize we're a little farther away from college graduation than they are. We've been out for a while. But if you had to look them in the eye and say, these are the skills or capabilities or maybe mindsets I would encourage you to embrace so you can participate in this next chapter, what would be the things you would give them as advice?
Well, Dan talked a lot about his parents, and I'd be remiss also if I didn't say, I think what my parents inculcated in me in terms of intellectual curiosity. And I think it's that intellectual curiosity that's served me well, Brad, to this date, because the more you are actually in your roles, the more you realize how clueless we really are, and how you can actually learn from that next generation of people who are closer, and that's the power of the teams. But I think if I were to give a little bit of advice, the advice would be, in addition to being intellectually curious, I think all of you, and Dan alluded to this, you have to be storytellers. And I think how you can think about being storytellers about whatever you want to accomplish. And I think the power today of being able to tell storytellers both through creativity, which I think is incredibly important. I know everybody talks about STEM, Brad. We talk about STEAM, yes, because at Adobe, we think the world without arts would be a boring place. But I think if you could, thank you. But I think this art of storytelling and how you can have that next narrative with data as well as with creativity, I think that's one of those really important attributes that I know when we're looking for the scary smart people, we're looking for people who are able to tell stories. And we're looking for people, and this is the second thing that I would say, who have a passion for what you do. When we hire, I look for passion more than I look for anything else. And find a place where you resonate with the mission, the purpose of what you're doing, because you're going to do your best work. We all spend more time at work than we probably do with our families. And if you can find something that speaks to who you are as an individual and how you want to have impact, I think then you're really lucky, because then it's not a job. It's actually fun doing it. And I think those are 2 lessons that I've learned.
Great. I'll just add to what Shantanu just said. I'm going through this with my daughter right now, who's looking for a job and interviewing, and she's like, Dad, it has to be perfect, it's got to be like fulfill my passion and socially responsible, and I need to tell the interviewer who I am, and I'm like, Molly, here's the objective of the interview, is get the job. You don't have to
Get off the
Yeah,
payroll.
exactly. Exactly. You do not need to reveal every single thing about yourself. Because nobody really wants to know all of it. They just want to know you're going to be a great worker. And so, like, there are very few people who actually know what they are going to do or be doing 10 years from now. I started off as an assistant account executive at New Jersey Bell. You know, it was that was, you know, you couldn't start any lower than that at AT&T. And you know, I thought maybe someday I could be an account executive if I worked really hard on it. And so what I would say, and I said this like at some commencement speech that I gave a couple of years ago, I said, like, just take the next step. Take the next step and learn from it. Because whatever that next job is, there are going to be some really bad experiences that you have in it, and you'll learn from those, and some great ones that you'll find out, wow, I really like doing this. Because as Shantanu just said, what you really like doing, you will excel at. And stuff that you hate doing, you probably won't do well at. But the only way to do that is through experience and taking that first step and not worrying so much that I want to be CEO of this or do that, because none of us on the stage ever could have imagined that that could have been in the realm of even feasibility at any time. And it's just one foot in front of the other, do your best, work your hardest, and learn as much as you can. And I think it'd be the best practical advice I can give.
I love it.
Well,
Intellectual.
what's awesome about this, if I may interrupt,
Yeah, please, go ahead.
then is, you know, because my kids don't listen to me, maybe I can give a, you know, the two things I would add, you know, the first is, you know why the grass is always greener on the other side? Because actually there's more crap on the other side. And that's what I keep telling them, which is, and I will never forget the advice my chairman gave me the day I took the job, which is he said, if you don't like your job, you have one person to blame. Yeah. I think that was pretty incredible advice.
I love it. And I love that quote. I'm going to use that in the future. And it'll sound like a West Virginia quote, so it's going to be good.
One thing Brad and I have in common also is our accents. We both, you know.
Yeah. He's from just north of Huntington. So beyond students, we have policymakers, business leaders, we have students, educators, lots of people in the audience. If you had to step back and think about what you've seen happening around the globe in other geographies and other companies, what would be the things that you would encourage everyone here to think about to better position West Virginia to compete either regionally, nationally, or globally? So what would be the things you would say, look, as I think about this ecosystem, these are the things I would encourage you to think about doing more of or less of? And either one of you can start.
Well, that one is actually quite simple. I mean, in my mind, I mean, why has Silicon Valley been this unbelievable place? And Silicon Valley has been this unbelievable place because of education. And I think investing in talent, you know, everybody asks us, we go everywhere in the world and people are like, why aren't you starting a company here? Or why aren't you starting an office here? And you know, the truth is that all of us go exactly where the talent is.
Yes.
And I think there's nothing more important than investing in education and investing in getting that next set of, you know, the workforce. Because the truth is, with all of our companies, we allow the best people to work from wherever they want. In fact, you know, one of my favorite expressions about some people at the company is when they ask me, we have this title called Adobe Fellow. And when people say, what does an Adobe Fellow do? We say, where does an elephant lie? Wherever they want to. And so Adobe Fellow gets to do whatever they want to do. And so I think investing in education, I mean, the reality is that anywhere you go in the world right now, with a computer, you have access to capital. Access to capital is actually not the big differentiator.
Yes. Right.
The big differentiator right now is access to talent.
Yes.
And so anything that you can do to, you know, get that next generation of talent, that's where every single company will go. And to make that easy and to make that affordable, and that's a passion also, as we were all talking backstage. But that is miles ahead, Brad, as we know, of anything else that I think somebody can do, which is invest in the next generation.
Well said. How about you, Dan?
I think I agree completely. I mean, we go where the talent is, and but the talent we need really depends on the position. Like everyone thinks of all of us as tech companies as looking for software engineers, but we look for all sorts of talent. We look for people who are excellent, in finance, in operations, in marketing, in sales, in customer operations, and so we look for talent all over. And to the point both of you were making, some of the ones you were making in your opening remarks, Brad, location is becoming increasingly less important. Even on my senior team, I have 8 people who direct report to me. I would say 3 of them are remote, aren't in the Valley. And so location is becoming less important. And I think that, to your point, is a great equalizer. And will become increasingly less important. You all have not seen probably the augmented reality and the virtual reality stuff that is coming in the next 5 to 10 years. That will fundamentally transform. Like I can be right here and I'll be in exactly the same office as somebody else is 1,000 miles away. And then I can walk over here into a different augmented reality space and be in another location at a meeting over here. So that's all happening in the next 5 to 10 years. And so increasingly think less about location, more about skills. And then the next thing that I think is really important, if you want to move from being a basic manager but if you want to become a leader of those, I think the next thing, and I would urge educators to think about this, I give a lot of speeches at a lot of universities, is we need to teach critical thinking. Really critical thinking. And critical thinking means somebody should be able to challenge you with thoughts that are different than your own, and you should be able to listen. Not have the hair on the back of your neck stand up, but actually embrace somebody's differences and listen to them, because you can always learn from them. You may not agree with them. Your initial knee-jerk reaction may be like, to push away on that. But I think this idea of listening to thoughts, like there is no truth. There's no truth out there. Everybody always says, well, I'm a truth teller. Well, no, you're not. You're actually just saying your point of view, which you believe to be the truth. So Shantanu has one, I have one, Brad has one. I'm sure all of you have a point of view about different things. None of them are exactly right. We don't know what they are, but listening to them allows you to make a more informed decision about the direction that you want to go in. And I think this idea of not being so shut off to opposing views, and I find this is really important, not just for students, but it's important for business leaders. It's very important for politicians. We need to have civil conversations, civil discourse, discuss hard issues, and then determine a path and move forward. And that is not easy to go and do, but I think it's essential.
I love it. I had 2 points I wanted to sort of accentuate, and then we're going to open it up and take questions from the audience. The first point was this notion of education, which you both pointed out, and Shantanu, you elaborated on. But when we talk about education, we talk about all forms of education: vocational and technical education, micro-credentials, coding boot camps, 2-year degrees, 4-year degrees. Those are all important. Today, we struggle. We can't make the iPhone in the United States because we don't have enough skilled tool and die makers. The number one job that Amazon is having a hard time filling right now, truck drivers. We truly have got to embrace being a nation of builders and doers again. And John Chambers and I often say, if my car was ever going to break down anywhere, I want to break down in West Virginia for 2 reasons. Someone would be kind enough to stop and help me, and they'd know how to figure out how to fix it. The second point I wanted to make is this notion of employees. I always, when I come back, someone says, well, when's your company going to open up more offices? Can you get PayPal to open up offices? Can you get Adobe? Well, here's the secret. 25% of our employees that we pay can work from anywhere they want in the world. They're called remote employees. And there's another city that I've been learning from. I'm going to go visit in 3 weeks on a bus tour called Tulsa, Oklahoma. They created a program called Tulsa Remote, and what they did is they found out Generation Z and the millennials love outdoors. They love whitewater rapids, they love hiking, they love being out, they love being able to afford their homes and not have traffic for 3 hours. And so Tulsa said, we're going to start marketing to those people and have them come and live in Tulsa for 1 year. We'll help them with their relocation, and we'll see if they stay. They thought they would get 100 people. They got 10,000 applicants. The average family that moved to Tulsa is $106,000. The tax base of Tulsa has gone up, and these people are now starting to form friendships and start businesses in Tulsa. So we can get, and by the way, we are the best kept secret in the world. When we had the students here go through the Silicon Valley contest in 2016 and we flew the winners to the West Coast, I only heard one thing from the CEOs that met them. Where are more of these young men and women? And that's why Dan and Shantanu are here. So we have to think about how to participate, even remotely, without an office here. So that's the excitement. Now with that, what I'd like to do is we're going to bring the house lights up, and we have a couple mic runners. All you need to do is raise your hand. We're going to get you a microphone, and you can ask any question of Shantanu or Dan, and if you want to go junior varsity, you can ask me. All right? Once you have a microphone, since it's kind of dark, just start talking. And when we say mic runners, we do literally mean run. Or we'll just holler out the question and I'll repeat it. All right, first one go. We'll keep going. So somebody holler out a question, I'll repeat it.
Right there, that guy.
Hello? Oh.
What are your favorite books?
Well, my mother was a professor of American literature, and actually her PhD was all about American literature. So growing up, I read a lot of American literature. But it's interesting you asked that, because my father and I, my father's 90 and still the most voracious reader that I know, we said, who are the 3 favorite authors that we have? And Arthur Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes was one. P.G. Wodehouse, in terms of humor, because there's nothing like humor after a hard day's work, was the second. And I would say, for the power of the individual, I was always influenced a lot by Ayn Rand, and Atlas Shrugged has to be one of the books that I think in my formative years had the biggest influence on me.
Dan?
Yeah, well, my wife always accuses me of reading books that have silver and gold on the cover. And, they're always like, I'm on vacation, I'm just trying to read a Tom Clancy spy novel or something like that. But I will also admit that I do read some other books when she's not looking. I'm reading a couple of books right now. One is, it's called The $1 Billion Whale.
I've read that too.
Yeah,
Great book.
Great book. It's about the big scandal that Malaysia scandal that occurred, which is great. There's the one on Theranos.
Yes.
Bad Blood.
Bad Blood. The whole Elizabeth Holmes story, which is fascinating. And there's one I'm reading right now on quantum, because most people don't really understand quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and I put myself in that camp. There are multiple theories about it, and I'm reading a couple of excellent books on that right now that are stretching my imagination.
Great. I'll toss in mine. My favorite piece of literature is Paradise Lost by John Milton, the epic poem. My favorite book of all time is Team of Rivals, about Abraham Lincoln's cabinet, where he brought in all the people who actually ran against him and made them his trusted cabinet, and it showed the power of diversity of thought, as Dan was saying. They didn't always see things the same way, but they got better outcomes. And the most recent book I love is Grit by Angela Duckworth. It's a 30-year study of how you can predict the high achievers in any profession around the world. And it's not IQ, it is perseverance and grit. And I think we make that in droves here in West Virginia, which would be great. Okay.
Hi, my name is Daniel Callahan, and my parents always told me that the best way to get a job is to talk to the people that can give them. So can I give you guys my resume?
Even I'll get one.
You got it?
We're all getting one. Here we go. In this day and age,
By
you
the
also
way,
have to email
yeah.
it to us
Yeah.
at snarayan@adobe.com.
But I want you to notice, one of us could have gotten them, but where there's a war on talent, so all three of us want to make sure we get the resume. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Great job.
Okay, but here's the thing, like for those of you who didn't bring your resume, my email is dan@paypal.com. It's really easy, so forward away.
There you go. snarayan@adobe.com.
So much harder, so much harder.
Brad_Smith@intuit.com. And that's because there's a more popular Brad Smith at Microsoft, so they had to actually make mine different. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Tania Creamer. I'm a nonprofit director in West Virginia, and I don't want a job, but for about 3 years now, I've been saying I would love to have Brad Smith on our board of directors. But a little bit of background about what we do. We rescue horses throughout the state of West Virginia. I lost 3 siblings in a fire in Huntington in 2007, and after that, it left me pretty desolate. And I said I really, in some ways, wanted to leave the state, but I love West Virginia. So I looked around for places that there was no need being met. I have a brother that's been a 20-year addict, and I have a family that has been heavily involved in business and politics. What I have seen through working as a CASA for children and from rescuing horses and going into situations where the economic devastation and the crisis is beyond comprehension for much of America, what I am proposing is there is a development through Coalfield development on the West End. There's a 6-acre piece of land, and so what I've been saying to people is that I believe that you could partner horses in crisis, create jobs through equine opportunities by bringing in children in crisis through the foster system, because we have the highest number of children in foster care per capita in the nation. We have the highest number of addicts per capita. We have the highest number of veterans suffering from PTSD per capita. And research shows that partnering horses with these people produces the highest level of results. What has never been done is partner the horses that are in crisis. So when we bring in a horse or a herd of horses that are emaciated, that came from a home much like these children or these addicts are coming from, and we create a situation that the community can rally around. And there's also so many leadership opportunities and leadership trainings that are done with horses, and we know that that has remarkable success. So basically, I always think I feel like I'm leadership-minded, and it's not charity-minded, but business-minded, that so many things can happen when you start to create amazing, beautiful things, but there are job opportunities and revolutionary things that happen as a result. But I ended up here because when I was at Coalfield Development, they said, well, Brad Smith is having a CEO forum, and I said, well, I'll be there. So, but when you talk about the things that businesses face in West Virginia, so much of it does rely not only on improving the economy, but getting the people before they're even thinking that direction. These people can't even quite think of what am I going to do next in terms of a job, because it's a child that has nowhere to go when it ages out of the system. It's a veteran that he's in mental crisis, and it's an addict that doesn't even know where to start because he doesn't even have a driver's license. And people think, well, why do you think horses fix that? But I think research shows that it does, and we've been recognized internationally for the work we do for horses at Heart of Phoenix. But I know that we can do the same thing with people with that partnership. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Did you want?
Yeah.
Yep.
I just want to say something on that. First of all, I really admire what you're doing, and thank you for that. I'm going to bridge from that and say that what you do and what other leaders of organizations do matters. And I have kind of become more and more passionate about the idea of business, nonprofits, whatever it may be, being a force for change and a force for doing the right things in the communities that we operate. And to your point, so much of our country and so much of the world, but let's just talk about the United States right now, lives in financial distress. You know, you've got something like 78% of all Americans who struggle to make ends meet at the end of the month, who can barely make it to their next paycheck to pay just their bills. It's the first generation ever where kids don't think they will do better than their parents. And I'll bring that back to PayPal. PayPal is like one of these progressive companies. We always pride ourselves that we pay at market or better everywhere we look. But here's the stat that we just found out, which really opened my eyes to how well the market is working or not working, is that if you looked at our entry-level employees or our call center employees, these are our entry-level folks, around the world, that's like about 9,000 or so of our employees. We did a survey of them, and 2/3 of them struggled to make ends meet. Working for PayPal, where we pay at or above market rates. And what that told me is that for a population, a certain population, you mentioned the stress that's happening in West Virginia, it's happening in many, many parts of the country. We can't depend on market forces to actually enable our employees to live lives where they aren't worried about making ends meet, the financial stress of it, day in and day out. And kind of, you know, the thing that I have always thought is the most important thing, the most important constituency that a CEO serves is their employees. A lot of people say shareholders, and by the way, I get a lot of push on this from shareholders as well. But, you know, this is one point I'll bring up. Today is a day where Intuit, Adobe, and PayPal hit their all-time highs in the market on the same day. And I believe
One
that's...
common denominator, none of us were in the office, which is why.
Exactly. We always say when we go on vacation, our stock price goes up the most. But the common denominator there is we treat our employees like their family. And that means that if they're financially stressed, we need to do something more than what the market says. And we looked at it, we took the cost of benefits for that employee group down by 60%. 60% reduction in their cost of healthcare benefits. And so they don't, have to choose between covering a kid or having meals on the table. You know, we gave everybody, every single person in the company is an owner of the company. They got restricted shares, stock grants, so that they can share in the success of the company. We raised their salaries where they were just not doing, so that we could create metrics that would make them financially healthy. And I think each of us can point to things that we've done with our employees, just like you've done with your nonprofit, where we try to make a difference in the world, either through social issues that we care about and that are important to us as the values of our company, or in supporting our employees. And I think we as leaders, all of you that will be future leaders, all of you that are leaders out in the audience, that is something we need to step up to and we cannot ignore. So,
if I can add to that as well, because I think it's such an important topic, and thanks for sharing that, Dan. I mean, I think the changing nature of leadership, all of us were expected, I think, 10 years ago to be experts at what the company stood for, building software, financial services. I think increasingly, and this is something that, speaking for myself, has been hard, is getting comfortable with the platform that the company has and how you're going to use the platform to make your company even more mission-driven or purpose-built. And just like Dan talked about financial independence, which is so correlated to what you do as a company, for us it's been about literacy. And I always say, you know, coming to this country, reading, writing, and arithmetic used to be the 3 R's that were perceived to be the great equalizer. And so what we do, Dan, is we invest in digital literacy, and we say, how can we, make accessible all of our software for anybody who has a story to tell, but equally to the employees, to your point, investing so that every one of them has the ability to invest in themselves to get better. And I think this is the changing nature of what has happened with both entrepreneurship as well as companies and enterprises, which is you have to figure out how to do good with your employees and how you tie that to the mission of the company. And it doesn't matter, I think if you look at our country, all jobs are actually created through small and medium businesses, and that's really the job creation engine of this country. And I think thinking about how you can tie together the mission with what you do, I think those are the companies that last in this business.
It's a great point. I think there's a whole new thing coming up around environmental, social, kind of part of what you do as a company. But when you take a look at ESG, which is environmental, social things that you do as a company, and governance, and you put it over here, but the rest of your company is over here, that to me makes no sense at all. ESG needs to be part and parcel of what you do as a company. It needs to be part of your products. To your point, we talk about this democratizing financial services, but one of the things that we are now, I think, somewhere around the 3rd largest provider of working capital to small businesses in the United States, which most people don't know about. And by the way, 70% of our loans are to the 10% of counties where 10 or more banks have closed locations. And banks close branch locations, and it makes sense for them to do this because they need X amount of deposits to be profitable in neighborhoods where the median income is below the national average. So we basically say, well, that's a gigantic opportunity for us. Let's basically lend to those small businesses in these distressed areas using algorithms, information where we don't even look at a FICO score. Don't even look at it, and we can give instantaneous approval one way or another within seconds as opposed to days or weeks to go and do that. And because it's in lower income neighborhoods, we disproportionately lend to minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses. And to me, that working capital product is like just part of the culture and the values of what we're trying to do as a company. And I love using that example because that's what companies should be doing, putting products and services out that help our fellow citizens and not prey upon them.
As long as you're sending all that information out in PDF, I'm aligned with you.
And we are, of course.
I do want to say I love what you're doing, and I am so sorry for the loss you went through when you lost your family members, but I love how you've channeled that for good. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, we're all born angels with one wing, and the way we fly is by holding on to one another. And you're doing that. You're making us stronger. You're inspiring us. And we have studied Detroit, Pittsburgh, India, Israel, Ireland, France, all these places that have reimagined themselves, and it's always a combination of private industry, public policy, and nonprofit working together to try to do something better for the collective good. I'll say this very quickly, and then we have time for one more question. I recently made the decision to step down, but I believe very much what Dan and Shantanu have said, that our companies are platforms for good. But one of the things I realized was our lives have 3 chapters. Early on, our parents and our community shape who we are through the values that they role model. Our jobs, our sports, our hobbies define what we do. But there's going to be a point in time in your life where you're going to want to know why it mattered. And for me, it became increasingly clear. I love to champion those people that other people believe may not be able to participate. More importantly, I love to see talent when I can see it and then give them a level playing field of opportunity to go show the world what they're capable of. And my answer is very simple: West Virginia. And so I wanted to put all of my energy, and my wife wanted to put all of her energy into showcasing the amazing capability that sits in this room and in this state, and to help show the world what we're capable of building together. And so that's my why, and that's why we're doing what we're doing today. We are down, Jennifer, to how much time? 5 minutes. Okay, so we are going to have chance for one more question and then a closing comment.
No, hi, I'm standing up over here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't see the
No,
microphone.
it's okay. When you were describing the skills, knowledge, and other characteristics that people are going to need for the quantum leap future, it was intellectual curiosity, storytelling, passion, the willingness to do whatever you want, whatever you have to, a wide set of experiences, not being satisfied with anything other than your best, and being adaptable. And being a historian of technology and business, I didn't think of Elon Musk, I thought of Thomas Edison. And so, to what extent are the skills and knowledge that have brought us to this point the exact same ones that we need going forward?
Well, I think the human skills that you mentioned are very similar. I think the context in which we're applying them is rapidly changing. And so I think having a mindset that is very open to change, I think is crucial. And, you know, it's part of the thing that, you know, I think about my college and graduate school education. You know, the courses I love were the courses that forced me to think and not to memorize, you know, equations and that kind of thing, that really challenged my mind. And that's what I really, and I don't know how to do that in education. That's many of you who are out there's job to figure that out. But really, we're going to have machines do a ton of stuff for us going forward. And they're going to be the rote stuff that goes on. So if it can be replicated that way, I don't really see, you know, something that you want to specialize in that. But I don't think for a long time to come that machines will replicate the dynamic nature of how we think and the way we look at things in creative and discontinuous ways to make leaps to something that could be, not what was. Not extrapolation, but hypothesis around what could be. And I really feel that critical thinking that I was talking about before is crucial in a world that literally, I will tell you, 10, let's just say, take time out of the equation, 20 years from now, when most of the students who are in this room are entering into the prime of their career, that world will be unimaginably different than the world we're in today. And we need to be thinking about how are we training and teaching for that.
We're running out of time, but two things that I have learned. The first is the myth about leadership is that everybody changes their style to deal with leaders. I think the most successful leaders figure out how emotionally you're going to get the entire team and what motivates the team. So thinking a lot about whether it's called EQ, but adapting your style to the people that you lead was perhaps one of my biggest learnings, because people are motivated by different things and they're driven by different things. So that's one. The second, I think building on what Dan said, dealing with ambiguity. It is very, very rare that my senior leadership team comes and tells me, Shantanu, we're all unanimous about this thing that we want to do. What do you think? It's typically they're all, you know, uncertain about the outcome. And dealing with ambiguity as a leader, we always talk about how lonely some of these jobs are. That's a skill. I don't know how you teach it, but being comfortable with dealing with ambiguity and being comfortable with failure, frankly, and making mistakes is something that I try and always impress upon people, because we all make so many mistakes. And I think leadership is about being comfortable with that and wanting another at-bat rather than worrying about what we did wrong.
When I do interviews for senior leaders, I ask them a question. It's kind of a puzzle. There is an answer, but it's almost impossible to get to. And I'm not really interested whether they get to the answer. I actually watch how they're thinking about it. Like in a difficult situation, there's ambiguous information. How do they process it? Do they get frustrated? Don't they? How do they start putting things together? I learn more about them in that answer than I would on like, what are you most proud of? What's your biggest failure today? Your biggest accomplishment? That tells me nothing except that they're prepared. This one tells me how they think.
Yeah, and I'll put a final point on it as well. I think on the soft skills, and we talked about these earlier, and you had them on your list, the three things that I look for are intellectual curiosity, humility, and perseverance. The ability to get up, dust yourself off, and try again. And then the four skills that we collectively have talked about, we think are critical in this next generation of quantum computing and artificial intelligence and autonomous driving are the 4 Ds. The first is discovery-driven thinking, which is critical skills thinking, the ability to deal with ambiguity. And for anyone still teaching business plans, we never read them. And neither do venture capitalists, because there is no one way to get to the future. It is iterative thinking and scenario planning, so discovery-driven thinking or design thinking. The second is developer acumen. Whether or not you're going to be an engineer, all of us should know how ideas get translated into code, just like we learned to write in cursive when I was younger, even though I didn't end up being a journalist. We all need to know that's how ideas get expressed in today's world. The third is design and arts. Technology is scary. The reason why Apple is so amazing, the reason why PayPal is so amazing, the reason why Adobe is so amazing is it's so easy to use. No one feels intimidated. So a role of artists and creatives, we call that design thinking. And then last but not least is data analytics. Artificial intelligence is about math. It's about statistics, and it's about data. And you don't have to have all 4 of those, but you have to kind of know, where do I want to double down? Do I want to be a creative artist of the future? Do I want to be a critical thinker? Do I want to understand how to write code? Do I want to understand the math? But those are the skills that are predominantly becoming more and more important. So with that, I know that we have many more questions than we could get to. An hour and 15 minutes is not a lot of time. But I do want to first invite up Glenn Midkiff, who is our director for the Center of Stakeholder Engagement, because he has a small token of appreciation for our 2 guest panelists today. Glenn, come on up.
Thank you all. We would just want to take a moment and thank our volunteers, our administrative staff. It takes a village to put an event like this together, and just want to take a moment and thank all those people. Thank you. And I just can't resist, Brad. I just can't resist at all. We are.
Marshall.
We are.
Marshall.
We are.
Marshall.
All right. Good job. We just wanted to take a moment and thank our moderator, Brad Smith.
No, thank you.
And our CEOs, Daniel and Shansu. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. So we have some gifts for you all. This was made in the state of West Virginia, and we just wanted to show our appreciation of what you all mean to us. You're a part of the Marshall family now and forever. Thank you all.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. You all see these? Aren't these amazing? Wow, incredible. I also want to just quickly express my gratitude to my 2 friends. My wife and I, Elise, are so indebted to your willingness to come and spend time here in West Virginia. So we wanted to also give you a gift. We're very proud of the state. We're very proud of all the things the state has to offer. And so wanted to give you both 2 nights, 3 days at the Greenbrier with any of the events you want to participate in. Come enjoy the state. Thank you, buddy. And for Huntington, West Virginia, for all the amazing leaders in this room, and from those all over the state who have dialed in today and watched us through live streaming, thank you for coming today, for investing your time, for the questions, and most importantly, for inspiring us and making us proud. We are because you are. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.